I'm Idiotech, and today we're going to take a look at Hacknet. So, in the interest of full disclosure, a few years ago I had the opportunity to play this game in a very early state. I provided the developer with some feedback and some advice, and other than that, I played Minecraft with him a couple of times. So if you think that's somehow going to influence my opinion of this game, feel free to tune out now. Now, what is this game? Well, essentially, if you ever played a game called Uplink, it's quite old now, it's a hacking game. It's very similar to that. However, it's a lot more realistic, and it presents hacking in a more real way. It also is more mechanically interesting in my opinion. So we're going to jump in. I'm going to load up a save game here that I've created. It just skips some of the story stuff in the beginning. And on story, while this thing initializes, it's not amazing, honestly. It's somewhat poorly written and it's a little bit cheesy. Now, I did stream this game earlier today and people in the chat were saying, well, maybe that's intentional. And maybe that's the case, but it doesn't really work for me. So we have a tutorial here. I'm going to get through it pretty quickly. I just want to show you some of the core stuff here because it is a little bit complicated and I do appreciate it if you just bear with me on this. Now, first thing we need to do is connect to a computer. Now we can do this by typing into the terminal, which we currently don't have, or we can click on a node here on the map. So we're going to connect to Idiotech PC. We have an IP address. Good work. The first thing you need to do on any system is scan for adjacent nodes. So we do this by pressing scan network or typing scan. So we scan, okay, we're good. Now we can disconnect from our server. So we've done that. The next thing we need to do is connect to this server we've just found. And it says, be aware that this is illegal under a certain act. And that's probably a real act, and it is certainly illegal to do this. So if you do enjoy this game, I do encourage you not to do this in real life. Okay, proceed at your own risk. So one thing I should say while we do this is that while this game is very realistic in certain ways, and it does use actual Unix and Linux command line terminal stuff, it's also not a one-to-one representation of hacking in the real world. So don't expect to come into this thinking it's a true simulation, because honestly that would probably be illegal to even create something like that, but also it wouldn't be particularly fun. Hacking's a very long and drawn-out process. So, okay, tutorial. So this VM's terminal module has been activated. This will be your primary interface for navigating and interacting with nodes. A command can be run by typing it out and pressing enter here in the command line. A computer's security systems and open ports can be analyzed by using a probe, i.e. probe system here, or typing nmap. Now, you'll see we can't actually use this part of the interface right now, and that's because they want us to use the command line. Another thing to note is nmap is a real-world command used on Unix systems for sniffing out ports, which is exactly what we're about to do. I think that, and I'll just type it in here, I think that is an amazing aspect of immersion and realism in this game. However, I am a little concerned that people with no experience with this whatsoever, that kind of stuff will be somewhat lost on them. I'm not sure you would know that this is a real thing that you're doing. And I think it would be cool if they maybe told people that this was real to some degree. Like what you're doing in the command line, these are real commands. Nmap is a real tool that you can use on a Unix server. Okay, so here you can see the active ports. And these are all real too, by the way. Port 80 is the actual HTTP web server port, mail server, FTP server, SSH. Here you can see the active ports, active security, and number of open ports required to successfully crack this machine using PortHack, which is a tool we have. This machine has no active security and requires no open ports to crack. If you are prepared to, it's possible to crack this computer using the program PortHack. So in order to do that, we just type PortHack. Now this part's very unrealistic. This is not how you hack into ports. So we type PortHack, it does a little scan there for us, brute forces us into the server, and there you go. You are the administrator of this system. Fantastic. Congratulations, you've taken control of the system. You can do whatever you like with it. However, you should start by scanning for local nodes. So we're going to scan the network, but we can't do it here, so we have to type scan. So it's forcing us to learn to use the command line if we want to. Scan, done. Okay, no results, not a problem. Next time, next you should investigate the file system. So we can do that by clicking these various UI things, or we can do it in the command line. I'm going to use the command line. So the first thing you would do on a real server is you type ls, and that's going to list all the directories on that server. Okay, the next thing it's telling us to do is navigate to the bin folder, and we can do that by clicking it, or we can type cd and then bin. That's a real command. This is how you use a Linux server. Okay, so the one criticism I have right up here is that they don't tell you the command for opening and reading a file. And it's not actually listed in the help documentation. If you type help, it gives you a list down here on the side of various things you can do. It also has several pages, so you can type help 2, for example, and it will bring you up to page 2, and etc, etc. Now, I had to ask my stream what the command was because I'd forgotten. I haven't done server administration for about 7 years. So what you do is you type cat and then the file name, so config.txt, and it opens it. Okay, totally useless. Now to be clear, now to clear your tracks before you leave. Move up in the directory tree and use cd, and then we can remove some files. Okay, so we hit cd, full stop, and that moves us back in the directory. So now we go cd folder name, which would be log in this case, because we want to go to the logs, and we can use it at rm. rm is a command. You can also add a wildcard at the end of it, which is the star icon you see there, and that will delete everything in that folder, and that's what we're going to do. So rm star, and that will delete all of the files in the log, essentially removing any trace that we've been on this server. Now we can disconnect by typing DC. Done. Congratulations, you've completed the guided section of this tutorial. To finish it, you must locate the process ID of this tutorial program and kill it. So now we have to use the tools we've learned to do this. And the best way to figure things out here is just to type help, because we don't know how to find a process currently. And so you can see here, PS lists currently running processes, and kill plus the process ID kills the process number. So we type PS, and it shows us there root is the user ID, PID is the process ID, and name, which is the file running, and that's tutorial. So we're going to type kill, and then the process ID, which is 176. This is real. You can do this on a Linux computer. If you have Linux installed and you're running a command line, you can type PS, find out everything that's running, and then kill a process using its PID. This is how computers work, okay? And I think that is fantastic. As someone who kind of nerds out on this stuff, to see this represented somewhat realistically in a game is fantastic. I think anyone with computer experience will enjoy this. Anyone without it, though, I'm not sure. I can't really comment on that because I do have experience. But I would like to know in the comments, honestly, if this kind of thing appeals to you, please let me know. And you don't have any real command line experience, Linux experience, because I'd love to know if people outside of that community would find this game interesting. Okay, first contact, we have an email. So, what does it say? I don't know you, and I'm sad to say that I never will. Okay, a bunch of flavor text. There's something you need to take care of first. The faster, the better. Hacknet OS wasn't meant to be released as it is now. After a while, an automated tracker will activate itself, and we can't let that happen. Okay, so our next mission is to find a file called securitytracer.exe and remove it. Not particularly difficult. So what we're going to do is back out of our inbox here and go to our server, which we could do by typing connect in the IP address, which I'm actually going to do to illustrate a single problem that I found with the game. I want to know what this IP address is while I'm typing. In order to do that, I'm going to have to hover over the node. I find that inconvenient, and honestly, it would have been nice to have a list of all the IP addresses I've found with the names of the systems so that I could easily reference them when using the command line alone. I don't want to have to write everything down on a piece of paper, although realistically, if I was using a command line solely, I would probably do that. So you can still do that, but from a user interface perspective, I think that needs some work. So we're going to type in connect to my PC, which is 250.111.125.205. And there you go, we've connected to our system. Now, you could have easily just clicked over here, and it's probably faster to do that. So, what can we do next? Well, we've got to find that file. So the easiest thing to do here would be ls to list all the directories, then cd to bin, which is probably where the file is, and then security tracer, and we're going to type rm, and then either the file name, or we can just use the wildcard to delete everything in that folder, and seeing as there's only one file, we'll do that. And there you go, it's been deleted. Easy. Now we go back to our email, go to the contract, hit reply, hit send, and a mission's completed. So that's the process by which you go from like receiving an email with a contract in it, doing the process, doing whatever it is you're told to do, and then, you know, completing the mission. And things do get a lot more complicated as you move forward. I'm going to show you a couple of missions here because they do get complicated, and I'm also going to show you a pretty awesome thing that happened today on stream where it solved a problem I had. Initially, I had a problem, and I'll do this in a minute, but initially I had a problem. Actually, let's just do it now. I had a problem, okay? I wanted to be able to play this game solely in the command line or solely using the user interface you see here. And now I can currently do that with the user interface. But I want to get rid of this stuff so I can just use the command line. And someone taught me something pretty awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to navigate to our file system here. We're going to go to system files. See this x-server.sys? I'm going to remove that file, okay? This is crazy, okay? I just want you to understand that the level of detail here, the amount of work and time and thought that goes into doing something like this, rather than just sticking it in an options menu, is just awesome. I have to really commend the developer for what you're about to see. So remove xserver.sys, okay? And that is now deleted. And now we're gonna reboot the system, which is fantastic. To me, like, I'm just nerding out on this, okay? Rebooting a system like this, even putting this in the game, is totally unnecessary and it's fantastic. So we're now rebooting the machine. I would have liked to seen some of this stuff be a bit more realistic, but, you know, there's some realism in there. And what you'll see here is down the bottom, unable to load system file x-server.sys, because we killed it, right? And it's telling us we need to restore it and all this stuff. And what you're gonna see in a minute, I found very impressive on stream, honestly. I kind of freaked out when this happened. Now, granted, I am into this stuff, but just to see this stuff represented in a game in somewhat of a realistic way is just excellent for me. Initializing, loading modules complete, loading, no, yeah, this takes a while, I apologize, but I just wanted to show it you because I think it's awesome. Okay, boot errors detected. Yep, get on with it, hurry up. We need an SSD on this computer, man. It's too slow. Consider examining reports. Come on, speed up. Okay, I think it's almost done. And it's done. Okay, so now we are literally trapped in a terminal. We have no more user interface, and I can play the game as I would in real life on a Unix command line. Which to me is awesome, man. For people like who really know this stuff, they can just sit down and use it as if it was a real computer and do, like, you know, not real hacking, but some simulated version of it. And that's just brilliant to me. Now, I want to show you how I get it back, right, in case you do this yourself, but I also want to show you because something cool happens, okay? So what we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to scan for the various PCs on the network. There we go, there's ours. So now we're going to have to connect to my PC, which is 250.111.125 and 205. Okay, so now we've connected and we've established a connection. So we're going to use ls, and that's going to show us our directories. We're going to go to sys, which I do by typing cd sys, and you're going to see when I list, the file we deleted isn't there. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to connect to face-based technologies. So I'm just going to back out of this server, DC. Now I'm going to connect to that IP address, connect 134.121, oh, sorry, I typed that incorrectly, 134.121.84.165. 165, cool. So now we're connected to their server. I'll run ls. We already have access to this server, by the way, because we hacked it previously. Now I'm going to go into their system directory, and you'll see a little difference. So if I go cd sys, I'm now in their directory, I list what's in it, and you'll see they have the xserver.sys file. Now I can use a command called scp, which is a transfer protocol in real life, very similar to FTP, just slightly more secure. I can use scp, to transfer this file to my system. So I type scp x-server, and I'm going to use autocomplete for this, because you can do that by pressing tab, which is really cool. You can also press up and down to see the previous entries you've used in the command line, just like real life. Very useful. It's kind of freaky that I'm doing all this stuff in a computer game, to be honest. SCP, okay, so we've done that. We're going to hit enter, and it's going to copy that file to our machine. Now, if I reboot the system, and this has bugged on me once, so hopefully it doesn't this time. We're going to reboot the system. Come on, come on, come on. Okay, it didn't work, so we're going to do it again. This happens every time, actually. You have to reboot it twice for some reason. It should work the second time around. There we go. And now it's rebooting the system. And we've taken the file from the other machine and put it back onto our machine, and now we should have a user interface when we reboot, and you won't see that error we saw before. Now, honestly, guys, it doesn't have any real practical purpose, but what it does is it adds a huge sense of immersion and realism to the experience, which is ultimately trying to simulate what it's like to be a hacker, and also kind of teach you how to use a command line. And I just think that is amazing and should be commended. And this is the final part for me, the bit that just made me lose my mind. Now, you may notice that the user interface doesn't look anything like the one we had previously, and that's because in this world, people are running the same operating system, but they've customized it. You know, they've added their own wallpaper, as you can see in the background. They've moved the windows around, etc., etc. And I've gone and gotten the system files from another PC that's been customized. So my PC now looks like their PC. That is so cool to me. I found that amazing when I first saw that in the game. Now, depending on who you are, you may think that's just crap or whatever, but I think it's an amazing example of the attention to detail that this developer has put into the game. And you've got to remember this is one guy, okay? I think that's fantastic. Anyway, we're back in now. We'll go do some more missions, but I just wanted to show that to you because I thought it was incredibly impressive. Okay, so getting some more tools together. So great, okay, blah, 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 some filler text. There's a guy called Viper. We have to get some tools off of his PC. There's some hacking tools we need. So we're going to hack into his PC and steal his stuff. Now, one thing that isn't clearly described or explained that I need to point out to you here is if you want to connect to these servers that you get in the emails, and they're not available here on the map, right, and you're only using the command line, you can either press this button, or you can type connect and then the IP address at the end, which is what I'm going to do here just to demonstrate it, because if I press this plus, it will just add the node. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go connect 50.240.238.131. Okay, and now you see the node has appeared on the map. You can also just click that button, as I said, but just for those who might be interested in only using the command line, that's how you go about it. I think there are some elements of this game that could be better explained, essentially is what I'm saying. Now, for the purposes of speed and this video not taking half an hour, I'm not going to type much more in the command line. I'm going to use this system. So we're going to probe the system. Okay, and we see open ports required for a crack, 0. So we can just use port hack again on this. Port, I'm going to use tab to autocomplete, save some time. So we're going to run the port hack, we're going to get access to his computer, and we're going to steal his files that we need, the hacking tools we're looking for. So we're going to go into the file system, bin, which is usually where most software is kept, and we see sshcrack.exe. So we're going to get this onto our computer, and we do that by typing scp ssh, and I'll use tab to autofill.exe, bam. That's being transferred to our system, done. I can now get out of the system. Now, before I do, and it's very important if you play this game, you need to delete everything in the log folder because it tracks you and where you've been and you connecting and what you've done. So you want to get rid of that. So you type rm space and then star. And that will kill all of that stuff, and then we disconnect from the server. Okay, and then we can connect back to our server. So now we've done that, we can go to the email, we can go down here, hit reply, hit send, and we've completed the mission. The next mission, and I'm going to show you missions, just a couple more missions up until the point where we have to do some DDoSing, and it gets a little bit more complicated, and then we'll call it a day. Congratulations, blah, 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 some filler text. Now, it's teaching us how to use this SSH crack thing, okay? And so I'm just going to jump in and show you, but we're going to connect to this server here that they're telling us to connect to. We're going to go into the probe system, and you can see it says open ports required for crack equals 1. So this time, if we run port hack, it's going to fail. Port hack essentially is just brute forcing passwords. It doesn't really make sense. It's not very realistic. But you can see here it says too few open ports to run. So we're going to have to open a port. And we're going to do that by typing SSH and then crack, right? And then we give it a port number. And in this case, we want to crack SSH, which is port 22. So we type 22, and that is going to crack that port for us, open the port for us, so that we can then hack into it, gain access to the system, and obtain the username and password. So that's complete. We type port hack. That's now going to obtain the username and password for us, which should only take a couple of seconds. Done, and now we're into the system. Now I can't exactly remember what we were supposed to do here, so I'm just going to jump back up to here. What are we supposed to be getting? We're supposed to be getting... no, nothing? Is that it? Is that all we had to do? Yes, it is. Reply, send, done. Okay, so that's just teaching us how to hack into ports. Something in return. So in return for that, giving us that tool, we now have to go and help this guy who's made a mistake and left some logs on a system. And he's going to get tracked. So we have to log into this system. I'm just using the UI, as I said, because it's faster for the video. Probe the system, so we're going to do that. You'll see we require one port. We have to crack a port. So again, SSH. We'll fill that out. 22. So we're going to crack port 22 because that's the one we want to crack because it's SSH. Makes sense, right? So once that's done, we type port hack again. And this has to be correct in terms of capitalization. So we hack into this port, we get into the log files, and we kill everything on the server. We can also it's not just straightforward like this. I can go into the logs and I can read these things as well. I can see, oh, what happened here in the logs? Or I can say, oh, what's in the bin folder or the system folder or the home folder? There's some documents in here. A personal police report. Interesting. Tax returns. I can read this stuff. There's actual stuff here, you know, like content. So if you want to take your time and try and discover more about what's going on and learn about things on people's PCs, there's also some humorous stuff. You can do that, but I'm not doing that for the purposes of the video, obviously. So we were supposed to get into the file system, go into the log and remove everything. So we type rm space star again, and there you go. We'll remove all the files. No problem, easy, easy. And we'll disconnect from the server. We'll reconnect to our own server and we will hand in the message. Send. Okay. Where to from here? Now, this is the last part I'm going to show you. It gets a lot more complicated after this point, and you can work all that stuff out for yourself. What I've shown you so far is just a very introductory portion to this game. So, to cut this one short, essentially there's a group called Entropy, and we have to complete a challenge in order to prove to them that we're worthy of their time, and they're going to teach us how to be elite hacksaws. So we're going to use a program, we're going to open a shell, right? On another computer, and it says running on computers you already have access to. So what we have to do is we have to open a shell on several computers we have access to. So this is our target computer, which is here. This is the target. So this is the one we want to crack, and it has a proxy server. And in order to overcome the proxy server to allow us to begin the port cracking process, we're going to have to overload that proxy server. And so we're going to flood it using a DDoS attack. So we're going to have to find a couple of host computers and then run a shell on them, and then go to this computer and break it, essentially. Now, one other resource they give us here is the Network Education Archives. If you click this, it'll take you to a server that teaches you about proxy servers. It teaches you about shells. It teaches you about firewalls, how to remotely execute exe files, etc., etc. Very useful, needed, good. Okay, so instead of doing all that stuff and showing you all, I know what I'm doing, I'm just going to go do it. So I'm going to find a target PC to run the DDoS from. I'm going to run it from this P. Anderson's bedroom PC. Sorry, but you know. So we're going to go into the probe. No, sorry, we're not going to do that. We're going to go to the command line and we're going to type shell. If I could spell shell correctly. So we're going to run a shell, and you'll see up here in the top right hand corner, we've got sort of a tool that's come up. Close, overload, trap, and cancel. Okay, we could get another PC, Viper's Battle Station. We could type shell on here, and now we've got two running, okay? And we could maybe go to a third PC, although I won't use the mail server. Let's go to Bitwise Test PC, and we'll run a shell on here too. And so now we have 3 overloads. So we can basically run a program that will just constantly ping and spam the target computer, the Entropy test server, with packets, and those packets will overload it, and we can get into the ports and start hacking it. So we're going to probe the system, our target system, and you'll see here proxy detected. If we start hitting overload on all 3 of these, you'll see that quickly just goes down and it says proxy bypass. The more computers you use, the faster it works, essentially. So we've DDoSed this server, now we have access to it. We're going to hack SSH port 22. And next we're going to run the port hack tool once that's complete, which shouldn't take too long. And you can see here they're adding layers. Every mission has a new layer and a new layer, so you can imagine how complicated this can become by the end of the game. Port hack is the next tool we wish to run. Port hack, done. Okay, and that's almost run. Come on, faster, faster. Now, so far I haven't run into any time limits and pressure sort of stuff, you know, where people are trying to track you down, but I presume that comes later. Okay, so what are we doing next? We're going into the file system, and we're going to go to home, and we're going to see Entropy Induction Test, and we're going to click it, and it's going to say, congratulations, download this file to your computer, essentially, to complete your test, and then Entropy will contact you shortly. So we're going to type scp en, and then we're going to hit tab to autofill, and we're going to copy that file to a computer. It's saved the game, and we've received a new email saying confirmation of mission, and we're now being spoken to by these Entropy hacker types. So I won't go any further because honestly the video is already quite long, but I hope I've been able to give you a decent impression of how this game works, how the mechanics work, some of the detail and the cool stuff that the developer has put into the game. Now, I do have criticisms. I find the story a bit cheesy. Granted, I haven't played enough of it to really judge the story long term, and I can't speak for the longevity of its mechanics and how complicated it really does become at late game. All I can do really is give you a first impressions, and my first impressions here is that this is an incredibly interesting little game that I think deserves your attention if you're remotely interested in learning anything about computers or how systems work, or if you're someone who is a systems administrator already. I think those kind of people will have a great time with it. And if you're not one of those people, let me know what you think about the game below, because I'd be very interested to see whether this is really a niche product or whether it appeals to more people. If you found this helpful in some way, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, like, favorite, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.